we've looked at thousands of dreams from different cultures and different peoples and different archetypes. It's really the universal language.
We combine the Jewish, Christian, symbolic, like more mind-driven language with the Native American, more earth-driven knowledge. And it's interesting to just combine both energies.
Yeah, to really let that dance together. Knew we had to take this symbol really seriously.
When we ask a question, we get the answer, but then you need to listen. Most people will stick to the superficial level of reflection and say, okay, yeah, I can really acknowledge that I'm kind of the same, I have the kind of same tendency as that person. But that's not reflecting it.
The thing that's scaring you, the monster, that's the part of you that's making you free, is exactly where we're supposed to be because we dare to really die.
Your most mind-altering hour of the week. Hi, you're listening to SHFT Happens, and I'm your host, Ina. Hi, SHFT Collective. In the studio with us today is Sara and Sven Goedbloed. Sara is an executive coach and the author of Ode to Magic, and Sven is an organizational psychologist and entrepreneur and the author of The Shaman and The Manager. And as you can probably tell from the titles of their books already, both of them are also shamans. Your bed story.
Our bed story, yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that, Sven?
Well, it's quite a long story, but I'll just
Do the short version.
do the short version. So we've been shamans for a long time. For 15 years, we've been working with groups of people with plant medicine, but also with horse medicine, with horses, with dreams, on deep levels of consciousness. And we were both really dedicated to that work. So every week we had a group of 16 people and we were diving deep. And last year we had a very intense year and wondering why is everything so intense? And as we have like a really close connection to Spirit, we ask Spirit, like, please give us a sign. What's the meaning of all of this? When I was initiated in this work in the desert of Utah, like 20 years ago, my teacher taught me how to use the plant medicines for 5 years, and after 5 years, I was ready to do my job, but he was kind of holding on to me, and then he got bitten by a bat. So he had to take this cure for rabies, and that's why he released me and said, "Okay, you can go and do your work, shaman." So when we were asking this question, like, what's going on, we got the message in the form of a shell with a dead bat in it, and the shell was the shell that we use for opening and ending the ceremonies, and this bat. And we normally put it outside after the ceremony. And this bat apparently died in the shell. So it was a really clear message for us. And we work a lot with signs and symbols. That this was the finish of our job as shamans. And actually in my book I wrote a part of the death of a shaman. Like there is, I think every role that we have in life, will die. You're a mother, so some of you will always remain a mother. We will always remain shamans. We have the ability to be shamans, but these roles will just disappear. And it's part of a dying process. That's what we think.
I feel that the archetype of the shaman is something that remains throughout time, and it's timeless, and it gets sort of reincarnated again and again and again. What dies is the person who took on that archetype and took on that role. And it's interesting that the two of you found each other in that role. And I hear that your story is quite a long one. It's based in a lot of education, in a lot of studying. Years and years, you mentioned Utah, you mentioned having a teacher, you mentioned having a guide.
Yeah.
How were you initiated, Sara, into shamanism? What brought you to that path?
I've always been very much interested in symbolism. Symbolism is my greatest love, apart from you.
And the dog.
And the dog, and my children. So I've always been in film studies, and I come from the art world. So I was initiated mostly in symbolism, always trying to catch the deeper meaning of symbols and signs and how it is fluid in our daily life if we're aware of that. So at one point I worked for Sven in his consultancy, and I said, I want to know everything about dreams, about all the work you do. So I was initiated through Sven, really long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah.
And he taught me everything there is to know about the dreams. And then we started working together. And the main thing we really added to the dream world, because it's a whole different perspective on life. It really, when I dove into the dreams, it opened doors for me. It made life more fun. It made life more beautiful, even when there's sorrow or when it's very deep. So we plunged into that, and we really deepened the dream method. And we still, to this day, actually, with any work we've done in business or with clients or with the plant medicine, we always use the perspective of symbolism.
And we're both scholars, so we're really, really into studying together and diving for the deeper dynamics. So actually, Sara added a lot to the dream world that I knew. Actually, we kind of shifted it into something else. Added...
Shift happens.
Yeah, shift happens. Added a lot of shamanic knowledge to that. So like the knowledge about totem energy, what that means, the knowledge about the elements. And I think we combine the Jewish, Christian, symbolic, like more mind-driven language with the Native American, more earth-driven knowledge. And it's interesting to just combine both energies.
Yeah, to really let that dance together. So we really explored that and found much more deeper meaning. And we've looked at thousands of dreams from different cultures and different peoples, and different archetypes come forward. It's really the universal language of humans. I mean, we have languages. You speak many languages. Every language has its abilities and also walls that you walk into that make it boxed in. But the language of dreams is really free, and it is universal, and it is what connects everybody. And that's why I love it deeply.
I share that love for symbols, but also for the language of the universe. It's not only a universal language, it's also the language of the universe. I feel exactly. It speaks to us. And people are so much looking for feeling the support and feeling the sustainment from something other than our mind, something other than our psyche. We're collapsing on a psychological level.
Yeah, we agree with that.
I feel that the answer is always there, that the universe is constantly speaking, and it's just about learning how to interpret or understand or even become aware of those things.
I think it starts with listening. So if you have the ability to, like if I talk to you and you don't listen, I'll just stop talking. And it's the same with the universe. If we don't listen to the signals that we get, well, they just get lost on us. So what we've noticed that we're able to listen. So when we ask a question, we get the answer. But then you need to listen.
But this is exactly why we were so shocked by the story of the bat that made us stop our work. Yeah. But we knew we had to take this symbol really seriously, because the bat opened the field for us through Sven. And with our closing ceremony, when we end our ceremonies, we use the shell to close the ceremony. And then the bat died in there. So people say, oh, it's so brave of you to stop your work. You had such a successful business. And we think it would have been stupid to go on, because to ignore the symbol.
But that's interesting to meet somebody that had that same kind of signals and same kind of, like, you have to be brave to be able to listen and to take the message in.
To take them seriously. But my struggle was very much as in, do I interpret it this way? Is it more convenient to interpret it this way, or is it more convenient to interpret it the other way? So, for example,
and how did you solve that?
For the first time in 6 years, I had a group of 3 people joining for the session, and none of them had the effect. Meanwhile, we were using a very high dose of psilocybin. So, if it would be one person who was experiencing this, or 2 people experiencing this, I would say, well, it's their message. It's a message for them. It's a sign that something needs to be worked through in the conscious awareness here. And yet it was all 3 that were not having the effect. And we tested the mushrooms, so we knew that it wasn't about the psilocybin effect, or that it wasn't the strength or the potency of the medicine. And therefore, I was wondering, was this something that was a message to me? Is it time for me to stop offering these sessions? This was not the only sign I was receiving, but it was a very strong sign. So then this friend of mine says, oh my God, you have to read this newsletter and you have to listen to these people. And so she forwarded me your email. That's how I found you. Your message, the bad message came in. That was my second reinforcement. So I kind of got a confirmation from your decision.
You got a confirmation. That's interesting, because actually, the mind makes those kind of, of course we can. We're really clever people, as you are, so we can interpret these things differently. But actually, we knew there was this message, and you knew on a deep level, like, no, we have to stop.
To get out of it. I mean, when we saw it, in an instant, we looked at each other and we knew, this is it. But then we went home and we sat. Actually, we got a bottle of wine and some cheese, and we thought, okay, we have to think about this.
Different type of altered state of consciousness.
How can we get rid of this message? Because it's very
it was kind
shocking
of shift.
For us.
That was a big shift.
I can only imagine. Yeah. And I know that my logical mind would start to create all sorts of stories, and one of them would be like, wait a second, but the bed also means echolocation, right? It has an extrasensory ability which we humans don't have. What if this means that we just became initiated into another, I don't know, psychic sense?
We've tried all of those bullshit things. Didn't work.
We tried
in the end. But I had an experience like when I had to move from my consultancy, which was pretty successful, into shamanism. I got the same kind of messages, and like 5 years in a row, I got like really severe injuries on my birthday. And after the first shock, that was like a bruised rib, I knew like I have to stop this work. But it took 5 years for me to accept the message. So,
and the messages were getting more and more clear.
And more intense. Like
break your leg,
break your back, break your leg, and stuff like that. So it was really, really clear, but my ego was resisting that message. So I had my training already in place, and then this happened, and I knew like, oh, no, I'm not going to resist this one. And Sara, I think it took half an hour. After half an hour, well, I opened a bottle of wine, and I said, you know what this means? She said, we need to stop. And so it was really clear.
Probably other signs before that made you also feel like, okay, this is time to stop. It's not the only debate, obviously. I think there were other.
It was building up.
It was building up, but it was not clear for us.
No.
Like we were just wondering. Like there was so much intensity in the field going on. There was so much going on. And normally we take the time to reflect on that, but this was so much. There was no time. So it was
going like experience after experience after experience, and there were so many people, and there was so much to do, and we were just focusing on the healing that we were bringing. It was too much, and we want to have time to reflect, to let it, because all the ceremonies we did were working from one subject to the other. So if there was something healed in one field with a group of people, the next group of people were doing their ceremony on top of the other one and healing the next level. And now it was like back to back to back, speeding up. And we were like, I didn't get to understand what happened here. And we're in the next.
So actually it was like really Jewish, like Yahweh, spirits. you have to give me an answer, like right now. Otherwise, I'm just gonna quit my job. So no, we got the answer pretty clear for us.
Reflective motive, how we look at dreams is that everything in the dream, it is you. So it's not about trying to figure out your relationship with your parents or where you came from or the things that you have experienced in life. It has much more to do with that you take responsibility for everything that life reflects you. So I can understand people being afraid of symbolism because it could easily go into magic or something outside of you, and that you see things as a sign or you search for a sign.
And then it's not grounded. Then
it's not exactly.
Yeah.
But the way we look at symbolism is that you explore in yourself what it is reflecting in you. And it can be from the dream, or it can be from your daily life, like you got your messages and we got our bat or other symbols. And you take it seriously and you see what it reflects on you. And it is never a bad sign or a bad omen, or it's not good or bad. It's about reflecting on yourself and taking charge.
So that's also the way we guide people. We guided people through the medicine work.
Yeah,
there's a lot of bullshit in medicine work. So people think they're shamans, and people think they are demons, and people think that. But we always used their language or the images they got to say, okay, what does this reflect in you? So you have the experience of being Cleopatra. Okay, what does this mean about Cleopatra in you? How do you deal with that?
So somebody could interpret that, oh, in a previous life I was Cleopatra.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Okay.
For me,
what
for us,
well, it's not bullshit. I mean, it's a frequency.
For me, that's
but
bullshit.
It doesn't. Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything at this moment. So if you would say I was Cleopatra in a different life, then I say, okay, that's a beautiful idea, and it might be true. I don't know, but what is Cleopatra for you right now?
And where do you take responsibility for this archetype that you receive?
Yeah.
If you take it serious, you don't use past lives or as an mostly people use those archetypes as an excuse not to be responsible. So
and to make it easy to put an example into a dream, like for instance, people dream that their partner had a sexual escapade with someone else, and they wake up and they're all upset with their partner.
Yeah, we have people that like we're blame. Should I tell him because I know
he did it with a friend of mine. It's not about that. He is a part of you, and the woman that he had an affair with is a part of you. So what part of your male side, that person in you, and even the name can be an expression of what it means, and every name has meaning, and what part of him decided to fuse with a new female part. And that says all about your development. It is not about the other people in your dream.
The basic rule is, what if I am everything in my dream? And actually that rule you can apply to your own world. And that's where it becomes really interesting. Like if this is the dream, like the natives say, like you're the dream and you're the dreamer, then it means that I am reflected all of the time, that you're a reflection of me, and that I'm able to, if I'm willing to, I'm able to look into the mirror and I'm able to have a pure conversation with myself just by looking into my dreams or by looking into my interactions during the day. And Jungian psychology differs from our vision in a way that we can just have your dream, and we don't need you to say how you feel.
So the difference is when we have a nightmare, we call it a brightmare, because things that you are afraid of in dreams is just pure the ego part of you that is afraid of it.
Example, yeah.
And the soul is actually not afraid. And with Jungian dreams, it's about what are you afraid of, and it also gets put down as that what you're afraid of is not good for you. But actually, in the way we look at the dreams, the thing that's scaring you, the monster, that's the part of you that's making you free. And the only thing that you see when you're afraid in dreams is or your ego is afraid.
Yeah,
because you're going into a next level of yourself. You're creating a transformation, something, a calling that you need to deal with. We studied it through dreams.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is it also reflects a new way of looking at our daily life. And we've used this in companies. And people come to us and say, I have a team and they're really difficult. I can't work with them. You have to train them. So we would come and we would say, you asked the question, so we first work with you. No, but I'm fine. You have to deal with the team. So we would say, no, we first have a talk with you. And then we ask them to explain to us this Peter or Anya or whoever in his team were bothering him. And then we ask him, what is this Peter or Anya in you? What is it reflecting? How are you treating yourself? It's not about people say, I'm also an asshole, just like Peter. It's not that. It is, how is the Peter treating you?
So how you're an asshole to yourself.
Yeah.
And actually, I had this company, this consultancy, and I had a lot of conversations with my trainers and consultants. And I found out about the link between the dream world and the real world because of my own experience. Because I had a very clear set of rules in my company, and every now and then my professionals would just ignore those rules. And I was like, okay, I'm a trained psychologist. I'm a specialized in conversation techniques for leaders. So I have very clear conversations about which rules to apply, and but they were just ignoring that. And I was like, okay, I had a conversation with everybody in my team, but I missed one person. So I missed the conversation with me. They were just reflecting how I was crossing my own borders all of the time. And each one had their own reflection of a dynamic in me. And when I started just using those reflections to have this conversation with me, like, hey, Sven, you're just excusing yourself on this way or that way, then it just stopped. And in psychology, I'm a psychologist, and I've been training lots of people in how to get grip on the outside world, which is nice, but actually in essence it doesn't work. The where reflection takes us brings us is, how do I have this conversation and get a grip on myself? And when I get this like clearance within, it will become clear without, because there will be no need for the universe to mirror me. So that's a total different perspective from most psychological or leadership views.
In psychology, people prepare themselves to have a talk with their mother or a talk with their father and to speak it out. But it's not about that. It's about dealing with yourself. And once that happens, it changes.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in ownership, right? So having ownership about what the world is reflecting to you and the projections that you're putting out there and understanding this game gives a lot of power. And I believe that most of the viewers who are listening to the Shift Happens or the Shift Happens collective, they're quite well versed in that language, the language of, okay, projection, trigger means this, it's all me. How do I integrate this within myself rather than trying to manipulate or control the circumstance around us? But the next level, as you're describing, is let's take that to the work floor, and that's
the next level of that is not, now let's go to the real shadow. Let's get to the real training. Like, how about the person you hate or you get annoyed by? Because that's a reflection of this part in yourself that you really get annoyed by, and that's a pretty mature training to get to those reflections, because we're going to war because we cannot deal with that part in ourselves. Actually, trying to project, externalize all of our inner demons, and we know that there are just very little people that are able to get to that level of reflection. Most people will stick to the superficial level of reflection and say, okay, yeah, I can really acknowledge that I'm kind of the same, I have the kind of same tendency as that person. But that's not reflecting, it goes deeper.
It's actually how you are destructive to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult as a person to realize I'm destructive to myself. We tend to, in the end, blame outside.
Do most of us self-sabotage, or is this something only specific?
Well, look at the reflection. Look at the reflection. Look at Trump. Look at Putin. Look at our own politics. That's a reflection of how we're dealing with ourselves. Now, what I can see is like, everybody says, yeah, Putin is conquering Ukraine, but I think in essence, he's destroying himself. And in this process of destroying himself, he's destroying other people. And I think we are all, if you just look at nature and the way the state of nature, well, that's a big mirror.
Yeah.
And if Putin is the mirror of our collective consciousness, what does it tell us about where we currently are in our development?
We're part of it. So if you really dive deep into the reflection of Putin, that's a disgusting road to go, because you will meet a disgusting part of yourself, or a very angry and sad part of yourself, and we will probably meet the self-destructive part of ourselves, the part in mankind that's willing to go all the way to destroy itself, and that's a very nasty part, because we have also this other part, that angelic part, which is willing to go, as you said, the shamans willing to go all the way to heal. But those parts are dancing with each other. And we have a lot of very clear reflections in this period in time. And the tendency that most people have, and that I agree, I can understand it because it's hard, is to project it to the outside. Just to say, yeah, that's Putin, that's an asshole, and the Russians are blah, and the Israelis are blah, and but the real challenge for the shamans, if the shift collective or the Shift Happens collective is about reflecting, the real about developing into shamans, then the real challenge is to just take those really, really very clear signs as an opening for inner reflection and for inner healing.
Darkness, all darkness is absence of love, right? Or absence of light. Yeah. And yes, of course, we are everything, and also the ugly parts. And at some point, all of us will go through a phase or stage in our lives where those parts will be reflected to us, or they are perhaps reflected at all times, yet it is whether or not it's critical for you in this point in time to face that aspect of yourself. Yeah. And then for us to collectively heal the planet or heal the collective, it is about loving the Putin in ourselves.
That's
exactly.
If you're going for that way, I totally agree with that part, because we don't like the shamans that are healing others. There's just one shaman, and that's the one who's healing himself or herself. And there's
but the thing of loving is, it's not about making a shift happen by pushing love onto darkness. It's about completely saying yes to that darkness, and also saying yes to the hate, and going through that whole thing.
And be the hate, and just accept it.
A lot of spirituality is about the light part of it. We love to be the light. We just have to bring the light. We just have to bring the love. And I would love it if it was that way. But for me, it's all about truth. So if we want to bring love to Putin, we first have to go through
self-destruction,
the hatred, and all the darkness that is there, and saying yes to that. Because saying no to that is again putting it aside, and darkness is that we don't want to see, that we don't want.
Because real love is total acceptance. So that means that we are totally accepting the darkest of the darkest of the darkest in ourselves, and totally accepting, which is even as hard as the dark, the light beings that we are. Because we're both. And in most spiritual approaches, it's like, yeah, we have to bring light into the darkness. How about accepting the darkness the way it is?
That's why it's so difficult, because we want to say, let's have peace. And oh man, I want that too.
Yeah.
I want that peace. But every time we say, I want peace, we say no to the darkness, and we keep war.
And there's a lot of manipulation going on. There's this story about the white wolf and the the black wolf that everybody knows. And actually, the story
Well, maybe not everybody. Maybe it's nice to tell this.
He's going to tell two versions.
And I'm going to tell two versions briefly. It's from the Cheyenne, the Native Americans, and it's a meme going on, and it's on postcards and it's everywhere. There's this story about this old Native grandfather with his grandson, and they're sitting in their teepee, and the grandfather says, "Shall I tell you the story about the black and the white wolf?" The grandson and the grandson said, "Yes, please tell it." He says, "There's this," and I have this question. It's a riddle. There's this white wolf and this black wolf inside of you. This good wolf and this bad wolf inside of you. Now, if I ask you the question, which one should you feed? What would be your answer? And the
Western society
says the answer is, the grandson says, "Let's feed the white wolf." And then the grandfather says, "That's very good, because whatever you give attention will grow. So feed the white wolf." But the actual Cheyenne story is that the grandfather says to his grandson, "No, you need to feed both wolves, because if you don't feed one wolf, the other will get false and will bite." And I think that's like the essence of where I think we make a big mistake when we just feed the white wolf. If we accept both parts of ourselves, that's where real love is to find. And it's not cuddly love, it's acceptance. Like, there is this
accepting everything. And I think from really young age on, with Disney and the church, and we teach children, you have to be good, you have to be good, you have to be good. And everything that they think they're not good, we hide.
So that's a typical example of feeding the white wolf, right?
Yeah. And that is exactly how you feed the dark or the black
wolf. You make the black wolf frustrated. You make him annoyed, and he's going to, because everything.
Yeah, because we are the black wolf. So I'm not allowed to be the asshole that I am. Well, guess who I'm gonna be? I'm gonna show to myself that I'm Satan himself.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. Actually, we are not allowed to destroy the world. We're actually talking about nature and all those. I think it's bullshit. Let's first start with where it starts. We're destroying ourselves. Let's just accept that part and not judge it, but just be with that part. For us, that's where the healing, and that's where shamanism
and it's so painful to face that.
Yeah.
That this whole world, there is not a single person that is not addicted to food or sugar or alcohol or drugs,
substances,
or the whole world is suppressing everything so that they can fake that they're being the good.
So addiction is basically a sign that the black wolf is frustrated and is fighting.
And we're trying to keep them caged.
And addiction is a sign of this black. Yeah, that's the black wolf biting and being suppressed. And if you're able to accept, and I think that's what real shamanism is, and what a real shaman is. If you're able to accept all of these parts in yourself and be with them, that's healing. Because if healing is not bringing the light instead of the dark, because then I say to my dark part, you're not allowed to be. That's not healing.
And the surprising part of it is, once you say yes to the dark part in yourself, you don't have to live it.
Yeah.
I always see people that are suppressing it, and it's like they're dropping venom by mistake. They say mean things that they don't mean to, but they've been suppressing it, and it just pops out, and it's, oh, whoops, the venom just dropped. Excuse me, it's mine. It comes out, it oozes out of you. But if you say yes to it, somehow it doesn't have to ventilate. You don't have to act it out. But it's a very difficult thing. I mean, we've all been taught. My grandmother said to me, the only time she was going to have good advice for me, she said, "Sara, be a good girl, listen to your mother, and everything will be all right." And I thought, this is the advice? For me as a girl, I'm not supposed to go into the world and be honest or be true.
For me, the black wolf was don't smile in public, ever.
And how did you go through that process? How did you accept that part of yourself?
I was noticing the photos that I had. So I was looking through albums, and I thought, wow, I hate my smile. I hated it.
Oh, really?
Ah.
Oh, painful.
And then as I started to do more self-work, shadow work, healing work, and it was about 14 years ago that the journey began, I started to discover that inside myself, all I am, all these things that I was afraid of, the wolves, I was expecting many dark black wolves, but what I was discovering is a very joyful, small girl who was laughing all the time.
Yeah.
I was a prankster, making jokes.
Exactly.
And I just loved being with that girl. It was so much fun. And she's sitting there for all those years, for let's say 32 years at the time.
Yeah.
She was sitting there waiting for me to bring her out into the universe or bring her out into this outer space.
Yeah.
And she was not allowed to come out. So then I came out, and then all the photos you see is me smiling. And I thought, oh, that's a hot girl there. I accepted that finally. It was exactly the same smile. Nothing had changed.
But this is very interesting that you now named it a hot girl, because that's exactly what was eliminated by your parents or by the culture.
Don't be too attractive, or don't
be attractive. So female, the dark side of female is that she could be attractive, or that she could be something or have sexuality.
Draw attention to you in any way or form. I'm still struggling with that to this day. You know, I'm putting podcasts out there, but every time there's people watching, or I'm advertising anything on LinkedIn, there's this constant battle with the wolf, which is not being seen, there's something about being seen or not being seen. I still haven't put my finger on that. So there's still some deeper work, as in attracting attention, attracting customers, it's not about surrendering and allowing it to come, but it's more about being attractive to something or offering something that's attractive. So as soon as people find
because it's not allowed in your DNA. It's really deep in there.
So deep. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And this is mostly with the darkness. It is mostly something beautiful that we're trying to suppress, because we've learned that it's not beautiful. So
the monster we think is
actually
ugly is actually a beautiful princess, for example.
Well, yeah, it's mostly something, a talent or something beautiful of us that we've learned that it was not okay. And in women, collectively, it a lot of times entails being a beautiful woman. And being beautiful is just smiling. I mean, accepting yourself and
being powerful, like the Lilith archetype. That's the one that's I think it's being activated all around the world, especially in the female, but also in the males. Yeah. That's about being powerful and being. Women have this demonic energy in them as well, but they have been trained to be innocent, and they know they're not. So we've done a lot of shadow work, and I think it started 10 years ago or something. And during the first 5 years, women were not able to do shadow work. But like 5 years.
How does that look like? What do you mean during 5 years they were not able to do shadow work?
Well,
we did this method that was called Shadow Pearl. So we would make people go into the shadow completely, because this came from the dream work. So we would go into dream work, and people would acknowledge their shadow, like you just did very beautifully.
Yeah.
And they would acknowledge it, and then they would say, okay, well, what can I do with this? So we developed a method called Shadow Pearl.
And the method is actually based on start with the ugliness, start with projecting, but just completely. Like if you like, it would be like, you fucking asshole, and like just.
But you project on someone that you really don't like, or
part of someone,
an aspect of them that you don't like, that irritates you. And first you get to project it completely, and you really had to say, I hate you. And women.
We're not able to. No, we're innocent. I won't.
The men were there enjoying it. Asshole, you idiot.
Yeah.
And
they're going at it.
They were going in it.
In the end, we would break the projection when it's like on its sharpest. Like, you hate men. You hate men. Okay, I hate the man inside of me. So it was like, I would bring it.
We bring it inside.
And that's like a deep process, because our ego is resisting all of that. Now, women were not able to were just trying to avoid.
And because you can't project completely, you're actually making it so you can't deal with your shadow.
And after 5 years,
the pain that's related to that. So that's a trauma that's sitting there and eating it.
Yeah, and you remain innocent.
Yeah,
women are so trained to be.
We're
innocent.
trained because after 5 years, then the first group of women went for it, and they
very
went
surprised.
big time.
It changed.
And after that,
shifted.
it changed. It shifted totally.
Really completely.
Yeah.
So what do you feel shifted or changed in those 5 years? Is it all the work that they've been doing together with you, or is something has shifted in the collective that we have become more aware of this?
I think it's part. We are part of the collective, and this method is part of the collective that was just handed to us.
In the corporates where we were working, like 15 years ago, you couldn't use the word spirituality or
shadow
or inner work
or reflection.
People would
Still a bit taboo, a lot taboo.
But then it changed a bit, because then they started asking for it. I mean, we were being asked into companies, and they said, well, you guys are very radical. Take us to do something radical.
Oh, those are brave companies. They should.
Yes.
We should make a kind of a highlight of this.
Well, actually, in our ceremonies, I think
there were all
CEOs, and they were like, we had like the top of the private equity lawyers. There were about bankers. There were a lot of CEOs from big companies so it's waking up, and everybody
but
is
they weren't saying it aloud.
No, so they're still not.
No, they're not. Yeah. They're not saying it to the companies. Like I went to a shamanic ceremony, so no, not. But actually, they did.
Some people did also in my podcast, but they were retired, so then they dared to speak out. And some women.
Even Steve Jobs eventually, just before his death, was able to acknowledge that he was sometimes partaking in LSD.
Yeah. Well, it's.
But it's waking up, and it's. I think this is.
And again, it's not a promotion that you have to do those methods. It's about being true to yourself, and it's about opening up to yourself. Some people can do meditation, other people can do shamanic work with horses, and the next person can just love to walk in the forest. It's about being true to yourself. It's not about doing experimental work that doesn't make you a better person per se. I don't like to promote it in that way. Yeah.
And for the Dutch listeners, there are Dutch listeners as well?
Yeah, 70%.
70%. So if you're a Dutch listener, we have this Woof magazine on our site, In the Heart of Change. And there's this dream part. And if you want to learn more about dream reflection and how it works, you can I think there are 20 examples of dreams that.
Super interesting. Where do you source your dreams from? Is it from clients, former clients? People are sending things in?
Yeah,
clients. Actually, there are people sharing their dream, and then we
work with the actual clients. So on our site, you can see a little Zoom call, and we recorded it. And the person that put in the dream is very brave, and they said it's okay to use it. So you see the person tell their dream, we're giving our interpretation. And the beautiful thing about those dreams it is a personal note for the person itself, but it is always a collective message. So everyone that sees the dream sees a message.
There will be a lot of messages for the people watching them.
So tell me a bit
what I love
about your work today. So we are leaving behind about 11 years of shamanic work where you used to do group practices.
15
years,
yeah. I think it's in the heart of change. And is the heart of change still remaining? Is continuing to exist? Only it's shifting in a different form, or it's taking another form?
We're in the middle of reinventing ourselves, and actually we're not. That's not an active process, but very inactive. So we're just waiting for the signs to find us, because the signs were finding us also to tell us to stop with this work. So, but probably. What I would love to do is to teach the world about reflection and about and bridging the worlds of, as I did in my book, The Shaman and the Manager, bridging the world of management insights with shamanic insights. I think the manager is the part of us in us that is most developed, in most people. That's the survivor, the one that gets grip on nature, that wants to control stuff and wants to get a grip, and that struggles with getting out, where stuff gets out of control.
It's very much the male energy.
It's very much the male energy,
everyone.
and it's a beautiful energy, because actually we need the survival skills to survive. And the shaman is the one that's able to dance with the forces of nature. And they both are alive in human beings and alive in organizations. So the manager is about being intelligent. So being able to analyze and to take action and
predict, measure, organize.
And to get stuff into control. The shaman in us is the part of us that's able to be connected to wisdom, which is a different realm. Wisdom is about how about the collective? How about our link with nature? How about when we don't need to know? Actually, the manager wants to know, the shaman doesn't need to know.
And this is exactly where I feel that the world is stepping into, without going too much into the AI, but the advancements of technology is now leading to the fact that we're no longer going to be a knowledge economy or intelligence economy. So the manager, the traditional manager that you're currently describing, is slowly transitioning himself. And then I was contemplating a lot. I'm even writing about this at this moment. I have research, and I'm contemplating, well, what will be the next economy? And some people are saying it's going to be the heart economy. It's about emotions, but I feel we've crossed that bridge as well. We've been the heartful, serving servant leader. These are people such as yourselves, who are there for the service and the benefit of the collective and others. There's so many other examples out there, the influencer economy, the Tony Robbins of the world, the Deepak Chopras. These are the typical example of the heartful leader. So then my next feeling or intuition is that the emerging leader that's coming now is going to be the wisdom-based or grounded type of leader. So then again, it's the shaman. It fits very nicely with your book.
Well, it is the shaman, but it's also a shaman that is able to be a manager as well, because
the shaman in stilettos, or the shaman with a tie.
We have met a lot of people that are escaping in spiritual worlds, escaping into what seems to be wise, but are not able to take their steps into the real world and not able to take responsibility. And I think actually that's in my book. There's one insight that we share. Actually, it came from Sara. It's about the difference between becoming aware and being aware. And there's a whole industry about
when you're busy with becoming aware, you don't have to take responsibility. You can remain becoming aware the whole time. No, but I'm still learning.
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it. Still not perfect.
Sounds like my husband.
I'm in process.
Yeah, I'm in process.
Yeah. The whole world is always in process.
Yeah.
Grounded spirituality is where the two worlds meet. And that's why I love the dream world, because that's where it happens.
Yeah, the white wolf kisses the black wolf, right?
Yeah,
this is where it happens, because this is where the spirituality becomes real, and it is grounded, and it reminds you of your responsibility that you have as a person living in this collective. Once you know what your purpose is, or once you know what you have to do. So if you are a manager, you can just listen to things outside of yourself and measure and be scientific. But if it doesn't feel right, you need to be able to dare to speak up and say it. It is always connected to the female power. Yeah, she feels that. And people don't take it seriously. But daring to take that part seriously and merging the scientific with the spirituality, that's real.
I think we have 3 people in ceremony that are not responding to the medicine that you give to them, and you take that serious and take your responsibility. That's an example of that.
Yeah, that's grounded spirituality.
That's grounded spirituality, because it has an effect. It has an impact on your life, and it is about taking responsibility, and it's about reading the signs. And I think a good leader is also able to read the signs. Not only the science of his organization, his team, and the atmosphere, but also where do I need to lead the company?
So this is nice that you take over, because this is exactly the question I was going to ask Sara, and it's about, one more time, becoming versus being, the difference, very practical terms.
Yeah. Becoming first, we call it a 9 or a 10. When we are stuck into excuses, I have to go. For instance, I know that I have to divorce and it's really painful because I love this person I'm with, but I know but okay, I'm going to read another book. I'm going to a therapist. I'm going to another ceremony to avoid the choice that I already know that I have to take. We call that a 9. It's the game of becoming aware, but actually in more than 80% we already know that we need to take this action. That's becoming aware. Being aware is just to take the inner signals serious and say, well, let's go for the 10. It's painful, but I'm going to divorce because I know, and maybe I don't know, but I feel like I have to do this. And there are a lot of choices.
It's going to be painful.
And a lot of choices we avoid with becoming aware. And that's like a whole game. And actually there's a whole industry of education and shamans helping people becoming aware. But we think the most important thing is, I think we've done enough work in becoming aware. Let's just be aware and let's just do those things that we already know that we need to do. Like, for instance, maybe we need to stop flying, or maybe we need to just stop eating meat or whatever. But
there are consequences, and people, they know it. And when you ask people in the corporate world, in retrospect, they always say, okay, this was a very good choice. You gained a lot of money, I don't know. And then I say, so what did you follow? Was it your vision? And then they always say, in retrospect, no, I felt that I had to make these changes and do that. And then it's never something that is scientifically known or in the vision. Or
69% of all strategies is not executed.
No.
It's just strategy.
Instinct or intuition.
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned meat, because there's a quote that I read today, and I thought, wow, this is super interesting to analyze from a perspective of a shamanic view. And there's this Danish explorer who's also an anthropologist. His name was Knud Rasmussen. I guess I pronounce it well.
Yeah.
And he wrote the Eskimo folk tales, where he explored the Eskimos and he spent some time with them. And then he wrote, the greatest peril of life lies in the fact that human food consists entirely of souls. All the creatures that we have to kill and eat, all those that we have to strike down and destroy to make clothes for ourselves, they all have souls. Souls that do not perish with the body, and which must therefore be pacified, lest they revenge themselves on us for taking their bodies. And I was thinking, oh my God, this makes
that's so
much sense, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of
The
souls.
meat we're eating, plus in Tibetan, but also Christian. I was raised as Christian Orthodox when I was small. Eventually I gave up on God at some point in life when I became super disappointed, as it usually happens. Then you have also, I think it's Islam, where they believe that a soul transitions into the light or onto the other side or to the next mission or whatever your belief is, and it takes about 40 days to do so. And imagine now that the meat generally that we're eating and is being sold in the store, usually it has a expiration date of about a week. So from the date it has been killed, within a week you're eating that. So for about 30 days extra, you're going to have to deal with the fact that that part of that soul that is still in transition is part of your being.
I think that's. I think Sara would agree with that. She's like totally vegetarian.
I've never eaten meat.
I'm half vegetarian.
I eat meat, so that's why it was so shocking for me to read.
But there is this. I think there's for me there is something else lacking there, and that's what I found in shamanism and in a native perspective is that these are our brothers and sisters, the plants and the animals. So let's be grateful. So
We actually wrote about that.
Be aware of being so grateful for the meat that you eat and the plants that you eat, and so be grateful. And I think that will neutralize all of this soul stuff, because it's about the respect.
I think you made just 80% of the viewers very happy.
Yeah, because they can eat their meat and they can just go on with it.
Happy now.
Yeah. But it's different, because most of the meat industry is not about gratefulness.
No,
it's just
disrespectful.
Disrespectful. It is not kind to animals.
We're not treating them like our brothers and sisters.
No. So natives, yes, I think they have a right to have their meat, or at least the people that we've all come from, and how we did that. And that they make it into a ceremony to kill an animal, to give thanks for their soul, and to use every ounce of that animal, and to give thanks that they will keep them warm to make clothes, and to give thanks that they will feed their children so they can grow, and that they will eventually go back, and one day they will be an animal and be food for the next generation. To have this insight and to be respectful to animals is a completely different way than we eat now. The children that live now, they get meat from the supermarket and they don't know what the animal looks like or what part of the animal they are eating. And I don't mean that everyone has to sit down and pray. It is not a thing about God for me to give thanks. It is about respecting and understanding the nature. I mean, I'll give thanks for my broccoli. It's also a living being and a soul.
That's Christianity in our culture kind of ruined, in my perspective,
giving thanks.
Because it's one of the greatest powers that we have as mankind, and it's for free. Yeah. Just being grateful, and it's healthy for all of our cells. It's really healthy, and there's a lot of research done on that. We've wrote a book on the prayer that we used as shamans, that was handed over from the natives to us, and it's all about gratitude for all of the elements, gratitude for the waters, gratitude for the air that we breathe,
for the mountain,
and the total acknowledgement of that we are part of a big being. That's so.
It's all connected. It is all connected, and everything that animals give us is so beautiful and so wonderful, and we don't even we're if we use reflection to look at that, and we're so disconnected from our animalistic self. That's why we're not in. You use the word instinct about the corporates. If we're so cut off from our animalistic side, we can't be working with our instincts because we cut it off. We just see it as food and as a hamburger, and not giving thanks for.
Most managers are very bad in being grateful. Most companies are not grateful at all.
No.
Actually, I've met many managers and CEOs, and some of them asked me to just be present during their at the end of the year or the beginning of the year. They say they have this speech, and almost all of these speeches were the same. It's like, yes, we had great results last year, and we've gained these clients, and our results went up. But we should not be very satisfied because we have to work on these objectives. It's like, you kill with those kind of speeches. You kill all of the management world is about not enough and being not great. It's not about being grateful. It's about being disrespectful in a way. And I kind of, that's why I stopped with that world and I started with shamanism. And I think I have to go back to tell something about gratitude. And to just what if abundance would be our driving force instead of the lack of.
Is this the next step for you?
I feel it.
The heart of change about going corporate now.
Yeah, I think part of it will be.
Well, by mistake, he just wrote the book, The Shaman and the Manager.
Yeah, and when I wrote the book, I was like, oh, this might mean that there will be a transition for me waiting. I think so, but I need to wait for the message I need to wait for clearance to be sure that this is also what the universe means.
A crisis is usually what catalyzes a shaman into the descent, into the darkness, which is a long journey where he learns all these things that you've just shared. Well, many of the things you've shared, obviously. We cannot cover everything. But it's usually a crisis or a moment that breaks the spirit in such a hard way that it pushes us to that extreme that now I'm going to do the work. And then you emerge on the other side years later, integrated, accepting more of the darkness in yourself, but also knowing a bit more of your light, knowing how you're supported by the universe. And as Bruno Latour described it, the actor network theory, that it's constantly all these actors that we are aware and not aware, conscious and unconscious, here and in the spirit world, consistently and always talking to us. And basically we're influenced all the time by everything around us. So as a shaman, you learn all those things and you learn to interpret those languages. You interpret the symbols, you're applying them into your world. How does a manager, like right now you're waiting for a sign, or you're waiting for an invitation, or for the universe to open the door for you to step into that world? How will you know that symbol has occurred? How will you know the invitation is there?
That's easy. It will be as clear as a bat in a shell.
Yeah.
It will be as clear as daylight. If there is this plan, then I just need to listen.
But sometimes the universe tests us, and I thought it would be clear as the bat.
No, why would the universe test us?
Well, to see that. I'm thinking that it tests us to see if we're committed to the path that we have committed ourselves to. Like an example, so after I've read your bad story, got my confirmation, this is it, and end of game, I got a call from my former life where I was invited back into the corporate world. 6 months, great project, a bit of an oil company, not very much aligned to the ethics and the beliefs that I have. So I sat there and I thought, finally I'm receiving a sign. And then I reconsidered and I thought, is this a sign or is this a test? Which is when I decided it's a test, so I let go of that invitation. Yeah. How does a person, the Jack and Joe, the Ina of the world, I
can give you a very clear example of when I already was in shamanism. I decided, because a friend of me invited me for this strategic session in a company, said, well, you're very good at it. Would you just step away from shamanism for once and just help me with this job? And I thought, yes, sounds interesting. So I decided to just step out of shamanism for like this project, and it was in a hotel, and we decided to be there an hour before, and they said, well, just join us with the session that we have before. And I was like, okay, what's the session? Yeah, there's this guy who was interested in, or who was specialized in clown work, and he's going to use clown work to bring some humor into the management. And next thing that happened was I was sitting with his red nose in the session. I was like, yeah, I get the message. Don't make
the universe is making a joke out of you.
It's so clear. So you get the messages. I was sitting with this clown, so I was like, yeah, you can't take yourself serious, do you?
So this is what I would call a test then. It was a test of faith. Are you going to go back into the shamanism?
Yeah, yeah, but you're allowed to just
play
and
trial and error.
But
just every time to realize, oh no, this is not the way.
There's also a lot of fun in that. It's like it's not that serious. It's like there's also a lot of playing ground going on. But yeah, I think if you're listening to the symbols, you'll get clear symbols.
So the episode that we're going to publish together, this one, is going to be the end of a season, an end of an era, an end of your era in a sense, with the bat as a symbol, an end of my era as offering psilocybin-assisted therapy in group settings. and also an end of an era for the Shift Happens podcast, where we talked a lot about psychedelics, the benefits, but also the risks and the dangers and the consciousness that's required in order to work with them. And an end is not always a pleasant time, and you've experienced it yourselves. It can be excruciating. It can be like you need a bottle of wine and some cheese to deal with it, or to come to face with it.
Yeah.
Where are you in your grieving process at the moment, and what are some of the practices that you are applying to death, to letting something die?
I before we ended, our cat died, and it was very heavy because he was very old and we loved him very much, but he really died it was like a dying scene in a movie where it just all explodes, and it was very horrific. But in that horrificness, it was beautiful. I had never been so taken by the intimacy of a being letting you come so close to a dying process.
Take me through that scene.
So we came from a ceremony, and actually my neighbor, she was in that ceremony, and a day later my son was home alone, and I came home with the groceries and my neighbor, and he said, "I think he's dying, Mama. He's dying in my room." And he said, "I can't look at it anymore. It's so awful." So he was sitting on the stair with the door in between, and he was telling the cat, "It's okay." And I said, "I'm here now. It's okay," because he was really feeling, he's 15. He was feeling incapable. He said, "I don't know that I do the right thing." So I went there, and like in the ceremony, you are present when people go through a process. So my neighbor came with me, and she had just been at the ceremony, so she was tending space as well. And we sat with the cat, and I petted him a little bit, and he let me know in his shaking and in his throwing up and in that whole dying process that no touching, just be present. And I told him how thankful I am for him, how we love him, how he helped our family through my divorce, and how he helped the children through phases in their life. And then he surrendered, and he went into death, and my neighbor was there, and we were so connected with two women tending space for this beautiful being, this animal, to end life. And that was the first time I noticed that endings and death is so incredibly beautiful, and is so something that we need as a Western society to embrace. And then a week later, we had a horse ceremony with a whole group, and it was 2 days, and they got all kinds of work done, and they went through processes and everything. And then the second day came, and I said, "This is the ending, so please take your last setting and feel how you integrate this work." And they were like, "No, we don't want it to end. We still have time. Maybe we can do one more process," putting it through. And I realized we don't want things to end. We don't want death. We want to ignore that part of life. We want to go through more and more and more, and not give thanks for what it is. We're not allowed to grow old. We're not allowed to die. We're not allowed to step out of something. We're not allowed to let go. So I gave that speech, and I told them how beautiful it was about my cat the week before, how wonderful it was, and how he showed me how to go through a death process and the beauty of it. And I cried my eyes out, and I was really shocked, because I am the facilitator and the trainer, and I was explaining that through my tears. While I was explaining how beautiful death was, I was also saying, wow, this is very new for me. This is a death of the way I used to work. I would always be present and be the trainer. And now I'm very vulnerable. That's very different. So we went through that. And then 1 more week later, we had buried our cat with the horses the previous weeks when he died. And all the horses had gathered around, and also the sheep from the other side, to be at the funeral of this cat. And my son and Sven dug the hole, and we buried the cat and gave thanks for everything. And then 1 week later, we were in a ceremony again, a plant ceremony. And we were having dinner at the end of the day. People were sitting outside, looking at the horses, and we heard a sound. And it was a tiny little meow. And out of the bushes where we had buried our cat came this tiny little kitty of about 3 weeks old, the same age as that our cat had died. And I realized if you really deal with death and letting go, there is a rebirth and something else will show, something that really needs to happen. But you have to finish and really go for the kill.
All the way.
It's also a chapter in Sven's book.
Don't keep the door cracked a little bit, really close.
No,
go through the process.
There's a big difference between dying and death. Dying is a horrible process for everyone. Don't get yourself like, oh, it's beautiful. Dying is the ego saying, no, I want to live. No, I want to be a shaman. No, I don't want a divorce. No, I want to. So it's the deepest no that we experience, and part of dying is experiencing this deep no. Actually, that's part of the love for attachment. Death is beyond that phase. Death is where we are right now. If you say, where are you in your mourning process? Well, the shaman is death. There's no mourning anymore. Because we finished it completely. Like the last day of last year, it was like we did all of our work and all of our ceremonies to close it definitely. And when you do it in such a definite way, there is no mourning anymore because you did that in that process. And now the shaman is death, and there might be a new kitten for us to just show, and we just wait for the.
Well, we did our last fire to end our ceremonial work. We kept giving thanks, to give thanks for everything, that we were kept safe, to give thanks for all the work that we were able to do. And I was kind of looking for a sign because I love symbols, and I thought it's supposed to be magical, but magic doesn't come when you look for it. So then at the third fire, the last fire we did, then there was an airplane. Not very magical, but it had one of those things attached with a
banner,
and it was a language that we don't speak. So we looked it up afterwards on the computer, I think AI, and it was Turkish, and it said, "Voice of the forest, forgive me." It was enough symbol for us. Wow. We felt very humble, and this was the moment that I wasn't angry anymore for being pushed out of the field of shamanism. This is the moment I thought we've actually been treated beautifully and respectfully.
Been given the red carpet for exiting the field and the gratitude.
So I feel very respected and I feel very much loved, and I feel that it is exactly where we're supposed to be because we dare to really die. And now I'm waiting for the kitten to come out of the bushes. I don't know.
And I'm seeing that Sven is tearing up. This touches you.
Oh, I really, it was a beautiful moment. It's beautiful. Yeah. And actually it's very touching. The whole love in this dying process is beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's most of us are afraid of that process, but it's part of our lives. It is part of our lives that we will lose relationships. It's part of our lives that we will lose jobs, certainties, body, health. It's part of our lives. So for me, it's a vaardig skill to be able to die. And I'm really happy that I've learned to limit that process that lasted 5 years when I've stepped out of my consultancy to half an hour. That means that I'm much more trained in
Letting go.
Letting go. And I think that's one of the most important skills that you can learn as a human being.
Death and gratitude.
Yeah.
I'd like to express my gratitude. I think that's a good skill to practice as we speak on the go. My gratitude for your wisdom, for coming here to share your process and the lessons learned, but also give us another way of looking at things and another way to embrace death, because indeed is the only certainty that we have. And it's beautiful how you bring the gratitude into it, to bring it into a healing point. So thank you very much for...
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.